Welcome to another live stream, Legends. Well, guys, in my opinion, the market is starting to really heat up here and getting pretty exciting for the bulls. Obviously, anything is possible, but the market is showing some very interesting signs of life for not only Bitcoin, but also the altcoin market. Will we get a much overdue and overpromised altcoin season, or will this just be another failed attempt for the bulls? Let's start by checking out Bitcoin on the 4-hour here, you guys. You can see with my green trend lines here, we actually have possibly a very familiar chart pattern to a lot of you guys. And if not, this is starting to look a lot like an ascending triangle to me. And it really reminds me of the bear market bottom. Basically after how many cycles? That was 2 cycles ago, after we hit our 20K all-time high top, when we pulled back to about $3,000. This is the kind of formation that we formed at the bottom before we ended up going, well, into our next bull market. So I don't know if this is going to send us into a full new bullish trend where we actually end up setting new all-time highs and going parabolic like everybody wants. I would love to see it. I personally don't think so. But I do think that this gives us hope for at least a nice large move to the upside. I'm currently more bullish than I've been on this market in about 3 months, you guys. Basically, as we got our swing fail at 125K or 127, whatever it ended up topping at, I've been very bearish the last 3 months. But recently, I'm starting to come around, and honestly, a big reason for me with that is the MDX Trendmaster on the 4-hour. This will be familiar to a lot of you guys, but this blue line here, so this is where we had our last lower sell signal on the indicator, and since we ended up breaking above that, that's a big sign of strength, that never ended up just pushing us to further lows, especially with the bears being so aggressive at the time. So the fact that we broke this period, whether or not we hold it, I mean, so far, even though we're wicking below it, we're basically holding this old resistance as support at this time. But honestly, we could go lower and I'm still okay with that, because even if we get a new sell signal, if we end up going a little bit lower and that triggers a new sell signal, it's pretty much guaranteed that it's going to be a higher sell signal. And at that point, I would expect the trend to continue to the upside. We would have higher trending buy signals and higher trending sell signals. That would be great confluence from the MDX Trendmaster. That's how I love to look at it. Not so much taking every individual signal all too serious, but when they start trending in a direction like that, just like when I was warning at about 110K, when we were trading in this area here, I mentioned that, hey, big warning here. We have a lower sell signal, lower buy signal, lower sell signal. That's a huge red flag to me, and a lot of people didn't want to hear it, but then we absolutely continued to the downside, right? So at this point, the fact that we started chopping around sideways, the trend wasn't really continuing anymore, and then we end up breaking this, that's a great sign to me. Even if we end up coming down lower towards... well, this indicator right here is showing 88.3K. That's kind of the invalidation, but often we just do a little wick and then hold that. That would be great to see. And another big thing with that, you guys, is that would line up very well with our CME gap, which basically bottoms around, 88.2K approximately. So I think it's still possible that we end up dropping to those levels, but we're going to have to see if it happens. We filled one CME gap, but we never filled the one that's just a little bit lower. Generally speaking, we do see those fill, but they don't have to. So I'm open to the idea of going a little bit lower, but not necessarily going to happen, especially if we end up reclaiming basically my yellow line here. So as we go here, I'm going to clean things up. So I'm going to remove that blue line. That was resistance, possibly flipping into support now. Either way, it was a great sign of strength breaking it. From there, this white line here, this is where we lost the microstructure, right? That's where we started to run into a little bit of trouble, because we had our high, higher low, higher high, higher low. We lost that here. So that's just a bit of a warning shot that, hey, we might trend to the downside a little bit. And since we have been doing that, right? We had this low, we had a lower low, and then we had another lower low. And that means that this is the lower high, the confirmed lower high on this little micro trend to the downside. So basically, I want to see the bulls break my yellow line here. One sec, let me just start erasing some things. So like I said, this is now my lower high on the micro trend. By micro trend, I mean just since we set our little pivot here, this is the structure level that I want to see broken for possible continuation to the upside. But yeah, even if we end up going lower, I love to see that Bitcoin and a good chunk of the market, altcoins included, a lot of charts are doing a fantastic job of building a lot of structure and building some support levels, right? I mean, not only, like I said, with the indicator, we have potential support just a little bit lower, but also we have a diagonal trending support line. We have, even if we go lower, we still have never tested the Stuber fib or the swing fail pocket ever since we got our bottom around 80.5K. And by that, I would just pull a fib something like this. And that shows our 7. Why is it not locking in? That is very strange. But the fact that we haven't come back and tested those levels is a little concerning to me. I would prefer that we did. But the fact that we have such a clean looking ascending triangle at this point, I'm open to the idea of us not actually ending up testing this support down at the bottom of this range. That being said, especially if we end up getting a third touch point on this line and then we end up breaking it, at that point, I would think that we are going down to retest these support levels. But until we end up losing this triangle, I'm not all too concerned, and things look very healthy to me. Let's bring back the Trendmaster one more time here. Also, if we just go from where our support level is, like I was talking about, the 4 hours doing such a great job building support, here's more, right? Just kind of looking for where we got a bit of a pivot here from our last buy signal. I could say up here, but I'm actually just going to give a little extra wiggle room. So just say that's where we basically got our pivot for this buy signal. And that's just another level of potential support. So I would be looking at something like this. You know, from here, it's very possible that we have a Stuber fib. It also lines up with all those levels I was talking about already, right? Just more confluence. We have the MDX Trendmaster lining up. We have the ascending triangle support also lining up with that. So again, just showing how much support that Bitcoin has been building recently. Just out of curiosity, I want to bring up the Algo Master. That fib is not valid at this time. Let's bring up the auto charting tools. Just looking for confluences. So we have the daily open and the weekly open just above us. So once again, if we could reclaim that micro lower high, that yellow line that I was talking about earlier, that would also have us reclaiming the daily open and the weekly open. So again, that would just be a great sign to me that the bulls are, you know, doing a fantastic, just breaking structure levels and reclaiming things. Even the fact, you know, the same with this level, this is where I mentioned that lower sell signal. Notice that the auto charting tools also printed a confirmed lower high pivot point at that level. So again, just the fact that we ended up breaking that. What's the lowest point between this and where we've currently topped? That would be that level that I mentioned, that buy level from the Trendmaster, that purple line there. That's all kind of working together as confluence at this point. So once again, things just really looking fantastic to me. And that's the 4 hour. So obviously, yeah, we could still go down lower, right? But as far as the actual trend looks, I think things are looking great. And guys, possibly what I'm most bullish about right now and thinking that we could get at least some sort of a mid-term bounce. Not necessarily all-time highs, not necessarily going parabolic, but just a good bounce in general would be this bit of a divergence that we have on the RSI. I'm going to actually make this grow a little bit. So basically what we have here is about a month ago, we set some resistance here on the weekly chart at about 94.7K. But right now, if you look at the RSI, the relative strength index, we have significantly more strength in the market right now, even though we're trading at the same level. So with the RSI, I don't care so much about if we're overbought or if we're oversold, and I don't like to analyze it all too much other than very specific divergences, much like this. The fact that we have significantly more strength while we're trading sideways, that is an early warning sign, in my opinion, that there is hidden strength here, and we are in my opinion, going to break through this resistance. And whether that means we go to new all-time highs or we're just going to do some sort of a retest of this old support line, flipping into resistance, very possible. Also very possible that we would be ending up hitting the 0.5 fib. Also very possible. Honestly, we could go higher. We could go all the way to the macro Stuber fibs, right? If I pull a bearish fib, we don't really have macro resistance on a horizontal level coming in for me until about 116K. So I would start to look for resistance around 115K. And then this is a very large range. So obviously this is going to seem a little silly to mention this whole resistance level, but it is what it is because this is looking at a macro time frame. But the Stuber fib pocket basically ranges from 116 to 121K. The swing fail pocket actually runs from about 126 to 133K. Now, guys, that's something that I want to put on your radar right now, is that if we do end up smashing through all-time highs here, but seeing a bit of a swing fail up here, just understand that check your emotions and consider waiting for a proper breakout rather than just getting above all-time highs, because we have already seen this play out a couple of times. We have literally the October 10th situation. I mean, we had the same thing, right? We had a fib pull from our highs down to where we bottomed. We got into that macro swing fail pocket, and we got that nasty rejection. So even though everyone's saying how manipulated that was and everything with the October 10th crash there, we were ahead. It was literally the day before that I was mentioning that we could be going back down to about 110K. And I was basically looking at that on live stream on a Thursday, the Thursday before it happened. We were talking about how there was a bunch of liquidity down here and it would just be a typical fib setup other than just a really large one. I did not think it was going to play out near that fast, but it was in the charts as far as structure. So a lot of people getting absolutely blindsided by this, but that's just a typical liquidity grab, swing fail, failed auction, fake out, whatever you want to call it. And the same people were blindsided by it earlier, right? I mean, we had the exact same setup here. It played out a lot less aggressively, but we had the same thing, right? Pulling a fib from our highs to where we bottomed. Eventually we come up into that swing fail red pocket, and that's where we ended up dumping. So I would not be surprised to see that if we end up getting to back to all-time highs, again, that's a huge if, but I like to plan ahead. So if this happens and we get up to this swing fail pocket, I am definitely going to be looking for some sort of a rejection. I'm not just going to blindly short it unless we get very close to the invalidation level, just strictly from a risk reward perspective at that point. I would actually consider laddering into some sort of a lower leverage hedge short at that point. But if I start seeing lower time frames flipping bearish as we're trading up in these levels, I would be looking to short the shit out of that. And I would be thinking it's very possible that the cycle is over from there, just because it would be the exact same thing playing out a third time and nobody learned their lesson the first time. I can guarantee you that if we end up going back to all-time highs again, that people are going to get FOMO at resistance, as they always do. And very likely, in my opinion, that the market makers would use that liquidity. But we'll have to see. This is just planning ahead, right? Obviously anything can happen, but that's something that's on my radar if we end up smashing through resistance, getting a very nice little rally. I shouldn't say little, getting a very nice big rally to the upside. We just have to keep in mind that eventually, we have to respect resistance for what it is. But so far, I mean, obviously that there's a long time between now and then. It's not like I think that would happen in the next few days or even weeks. In my opinion, that would take months to play out. But there's plenty of trade opportunities between now and then. First things first, I want to see what this 4-hour consolidation does. Again, to me, it looks like some sort of an ascending triangle. And if we are to take, I know not everyone likes trading patterns. I do like triangle patterns. I would prefer it to have a third touch point, something like this, and then break out. I would love to see something like that. But even as it looks right now, it looks pretty clean. And if we take a measured move, If we get that breakout, that puts us around $109,000. So that's a very big move to the upside if we end up getting that. And obviously from there, we have to see what the market makers decide and what happens with FOMO, right? We're going to have to see. If we bring up the long short ratio, for example, you can see that retail loves starting to build longs at resistance, which is why we got that little dump. If I were to zoom into the hourly, I am guessing that retail is probably starting to build shorts a little bit as we formed a little bit of a double bottom or some sort of consolidation, a bit of a swing fail, and then breaking out there. But you can see that retail is starting to build shorts, so market makers using that liquidity basically. So as long as retail is willing to build short positions, I think that it's very possible that we continue running to the upside. As soon as retail starts getting FOMO again and thinking that we are going parabolic again, guaranteed, that is where we will see the price continue its downtrend. But so far, like I said, it's looking great. Bitcoin dominance, this is one that I'm excited about. We'll have to see what happens here, but we have this signal on the MDX Trendmaster on Bitcoin dominance. We have lower trending sell signals. We actually have a couple of them. And guys, this is a signal that this chart had not printed in over 3 years. So this is a very big deal in my opinion. And not only that, but just looking at where we ended up topping, if we pull a fib from where Bitcoin dominance topped here, basically, notice where we got that rejection was right at a typical macro Stuber fib, touched the 786, and then start printing those lower sell signals on the daily time frame. That's a big, in my opinion, that's a big green light for altcoins, because if big money is willing to basically flow from the the safer asset, I know it's kind of silly that Bitcoin is already a high risk asset, but as far as crypto goes, it is the low risk asset. So as we see focus going off that and money flowing basically into other projects, that's where we can start to see altcoins make their run. So I love to see this. It kind of reminds me of, well, we're going to have to see if we actually roll over here. But when was this? This was, back in July when I was getting excited to trade altcoins last time here, was just because we got that rejection around the macro Stuber fib. But that was back in July or so, and altcoins did go for a beautiful little run there, but eventually, it came to an end. It was just kind of a mid-cycle rally or whatever. But if we could see this trend now that it's consolidated on the daily time frame for a very long time, basically since September, actually basically since August, if we could continue that trend to the downside now, that would be a huge green light for the altcoins. Speaking of that, let's dive into a few altcoins. Hype, for example, I am in a little bit of a scalp short that I took recently, just basically a couple hours ago. No, I never caught this wick perfectly. It was actually back here that I ended up shorting, but just basically because I just felt like, just going to play the trend. Again, using the MDX Trendmaster. And again, not each individual signal, but just noticing that we have lower trending buy signals and lower trending sell signals, that I was willing to play the retest of this. Not a perfect retest. It wasn't a perfect entry, but whatever. I was comfortable with the risk there and just playing the continuation. So although I am bullish on the market right now, this is just a trade on a 5-minute chart, right? So at this point, I just, before starting the stream, updated my stop loss to break even, and we're just going to see what happens with this because it's a low time frame trade. But as far as the 4-hour and stuff like that looks, everything is looking great to me. So once we start seeing this somewhat of a reversal where we start printing higher sell signals, higher buy signals on the lower time frames, that's where I'm going to get excited to start playing long positions again on the altcoins. Zcash. Now, this is one I've been mentioning the last few streams. I have said that it's one of the weaker looking coins recently. I know it went for its crazy parabolic run where it pumped like 20x or whatever. But right about here, I was mentioning that, hey, we actually have some weakness on this trend because we lost a micro higher low. We set another lower low, confirming another lower high, and we have obviously set a significantly lower low now. with our confirmed lower high. So we could still get a decent bounce here, but the trend is to the downside as far as basic market structure goes. Still technically have higher trending sell signals and buy signals. So not all hope is lost for this guy, but apparently the entire the core dev team had all resigned or something like that recently as well. I'm not much of a fundamental guy, but obviously there's some panic around that, and the charts, just from a structural point of view, were showing that weakness. And then to hear that little announcement there, this might be an interesting one, worth looking for short opportunities, in my opinion. Looking at something right now, for example, would be pulling a fib basically from my lower high on the trend. If you wanted to be a little bit more cautious, you could always pull it more something like that from the actual highs of the range. But as far as the microstructure on the trend goes, I wouldn't really want to see the price go back above 530 if I were shorting this, just because if we break that sell signal, then it's very likely that we're going to trend higher once again. Ethereum still looking pretty good in my opinion. My bot is not in this long anymore. But yeah, I was talking about this in a couple streams as well. I think I was pointing this one out since basically back here, talking about the fact that since we had lost, and this is one of those cases looking at that microstructure again, right? Our higher high, this would be the lowest point between the two. We lost that. And at that point, I started warning that it's very possible we could end up coming back and testing this big Stuber fib down here. We got that perfect 786 reversal. I never personally took that. I was warning about it, but I never took it myself. But it has hit its first 2 take profits. So if you were in that position, obviously. So to see a little bit of a pullback after it hits that level, not all too crazy. That happens so often. And guys, the reasoning for that is if we pull a fib the opposite direction, notice where that takes us. That was a typical Stuber fib rejection. So that 214 target, that is basically the opposite 786. So to see a bit of a rejection there, not all too crazy, but the trend overall still looks good to me. Again, bringing up the trend master indicator, we have higher trending sell signals, higher trending buy signals. That looks great. Let's see if the Algo Master auto fibs will bring anything up. That is invalid because it's obviously broke through that range, so that does not concern us. But yeah, Ethereum, like I said, trend still looking good at this point. Not the same type of ascending triangle like Bitcoin. I would say more of an asymmetrical triangle in this case. Yeah, it'd be something like that. I don't like playing breakouts unless they have 3 exact touch points. So I would want to see a third touch point rejection, just a little, even if it's just a short little pause and then end up breaking it. At that point, I would start to consider it a bullish breakout. But we'll have to see what happens there. Like I said, trend's still looking good to me there. Little pullback, not too concerning. Solana, looking not too bad. Obviously, well, much like Ethereum, right? We ended up testing the 786 basically. Actually, this one went up to the 886. That's where we got our rejection. But basically came down to the 0.5 fib. Front ran it a little bit. I never took this position. I was not interested in shorting the market, so I was not shorting this. But even right now, what we have with the microstructure, so we broke that little microstructure. Since that, we've sent low, lower low, confirmed lower high. Again, just the micro trend, and we may have already reversed that, right? The fact that we broke that little structure there, if this downtrend was going to continue aggressively, I would not have expected it to get any higher than this structure right here. So the fact that we got above that, at least that's showing that the little mini downtrend that started may have already broken. We could even come back down and retest this support, do something like that. If we did that, that would look insanely bullish to me. So Solana not looking so bad to me. Sui, I have been pretty vocal about this one. Same thing, right? We had lower trending sell signals for just months, you guys. months. And we ended up eventually breaking that guy down here. So that's where, even though I never got into anywhere near a perfect entry and I saw this late, I just wanted to have just a position in general of some kind on this in case we ended up holding this buy trend as support. And so far it's doing a great job, right? We're still holding this purple line, even where this pullback came down to. Look where we ended up finding support, right along that MDX Trendmaster. So the fact that we broke this level here gives me a lot more faith in this buy signal, or just this purple trend in general. Obviously, eventually it's got to break and we'll see some sort of a pullback or whatever. But so far, the trend is your friend. And, there's no reason to really be concerned there, in my opinion, yet. I have my stop loss just, basically break even. Very small profit to cover my fees and stuff. This yellow line here, that would be just the naked market structure. So let's take off the trend master. Again, just looking at the trend for what it is on the 4 hour, this would have been our previous little high, obviously sent a higher high. That would be our low point between the two. So as long as we are holding basically above $1.66, then this trend still looks fantastic to me. I'd even be willing to pull a fib, something like that, and actually look what happened. Technically, it's already played out because we got the bounce right around the 786 there and have hit the 0.5 fib target already. But just an example of how that market structure works and how it's just so far, I would expect support to act as support because the trend hasn't broken yet. AVAX is another one that looks pretty good. One thing concerning me about this guy a little bit is that we did lose this microstructure, hence my yellow line there. But what I do like to see is, once again, we obviously smashed through this lower sell signal. We have higher printing buy signals on the 4 hour. We still technically have MDX Trendmaster support right below the price. I wouldn't really want to see us go lower than this little fake out here. Basically, I wouldn't want to see us go below $13.55, basically. I think that would be a sign of weakness. But that being said, I don't necessarily think new lows, but maybe just coming back down and testing a lower support level, or maybe something like this. Drop a little bit lower all the way down to the 786. It's possible. I'm not in a position that, I don't have my money where my mouth is on that. I'm not taking a short on this, anything like that. So far, I'm still bullish on the trend as long as we are holding this indicator support, basically. Now, guys, I do want to get into the dirty stuff. Let's get into a couple of meme coins. Now, before I even switch my chart, I want to be clear about something. Meme coins are incredibly dangerous. They are extremely volatile. Most of them are very low market caps. Most of them die a very quick and painful death. But there's a few on my radar, more so a couple on my radar. One, you guys know, I've been very vocal about this one in the micro caps, is Troll. I mean, I got into Troll back at about 1 cent. I caught a 25x on it last time, and I'm just kind of feeling like we have a very similar range forming now. Again, very high risk. This thing only has about a $32 million market cap or something like that. I believe, yeah, 32 million. So very low market cap, and it's a meme coin. But as far as meme coins go, this one makes the most sense out of any of them to me. Just the fact that it's basically the OG meme of internet culture. They literally bought the IP rights to the artwork. Very active community on social media, on TikTok, on X. There's just so much. Coinbase, I think they now own almost 8% of the supply, and they're going for organic listings. They're not, giving exchanges half the supply so that they'll list them, anything like that. It's just that there is hype around it, and there's a lot of interested people, and some exchanges are seeing that and listing it, right? So we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, the thing with meme coins is they do well in very specific market conditions. Other than that, they shit the bed. And I basically think that we're getting close to that part of the market cycle because, you know, like I was talking about with Bitcoin dominance, hopefully dropping off a cliff. If this ends up pumping to the upside and invalidating the sell signal, then I have big concerns about the altcoin market. But so far, still holding that. So if, as long as Bitcoin, especially if Bitcoin gets that little rally that I'm talking about, you know, if we do get that bullish breakout, so Bitcoin is either trading to the upside, trading sideways, basically doing anything other than going full panic mode and nuking, I think that altcoins are in a good spot just because so many of them are starting to form some nice structure, starting to break down trends. Like I said, Bitcoin dominance dropping. There's just a lot of things kind of starting to go for the altcoin market, as long as nothing seriously spooks the market. If that happens, I expect no exceptions and meme coins will just get absolutely slaughtered. But that being said, if meme coins do have a season, and generally it's closer to the end of the cycle, or at least the end of a phase of a cycle, it's, you know, where people are excited to have profits and start rotating that money around, and memes in general are just the thing. It's kind of funny. The one thing that makes me a little bit bullish on meme coins is the fact that there's no actual value there. That might sound counterproductive, but there's so many projects out there that have failed promises that just get, you know, a new project comes along that's just makes their tech obsolete. Something comes by that's better and faster and cheaper and whatever, more popular in general. You know, with meme coins, it's generally just people having fun and just communities doing their thing. So as long as we are in the right phase of the cycle, I still think meme coins will be a thing. It's just that obviously for most of a cycle, they don't do well. Let's hop over to one more I want to mention would be Cat with Mask. This one's even higher risk because it is only about a $3 million market cap. So very low cap, and again, a meme coin. But something catching my eye here is that on the daily time frame, we do have a nice Stuber fib here that we did end up. This was actually, I was buying down here, but I was also buying much higher. I've kind of bought this randomly throughout the months. But yeah, just seeing this bullish Stuber fib here, it has hit its target. So that's worth mentioning. We have already hit the range target. As long as we can keep this higher low, basically, this confirmed higher low on the micro trend here, I think all is in good shape. But what I'm more excited about is that this thing basically had an entire bear market already. A lot of meme coins do that, where a lot of coins in general, and honestly even stocks, you guys, with a lot of IPOs, just when things launch, there's that initial hype, but then it is quickly shut down. And they basically go into a long drawn out period of a big correction. And if they survive from there and start trending back to the upside, fantastic. And that's kind of what I'm seeing here, is that basically a bear market here. I mean, when did this thing launch? When did we top? We topped in June. And since that, it's been a nasty downtrend. But this is a very clean wedge pattern. The fact that we have 3 very exact touch points. And then let's even zoom in a little bit. And this is the daily, you guys. And then basically when we broke that, we started retesting it, that old resistance, as new support. And then we formed a rounding bottom, formed a bullish Stuber fib. And so far, it's looking not too bad to me, to be honest. I would like to see us go a little bit higher. And then I could move this yellow line up to this structure here as basically my new confirmed higher low. Can't do that yet until we set a new high. But yeah, the structure of this looks not too bad. Again, it is obviously the Solana casino. It is very high risk. I consider it a gamble. Don't get silly with position sizing and that kind of thing. But as it looks, I am willing to DCA into this as far as one of my meme coin bags goes, basically. Troll and Cat with Mask are my 2 biggest meme coin holdings. What else? What else here, guys? Hey, I just noticed Adrian in here. Adrian, how does this pattern make you feel? Look familiar? It almost hurts to look at, doesn't it? I'm not gonna lie, you guys, being a bear against the masses and making money to the downside is a very special feeling. Plus, it's just fun to be a troll in general when the market's crashing. But downtrends are very fun to play. And honestly, if we go to the upside, I love a bull market, obviously. Everybody does. A parabolic run and altcoin season and all those things, you guys, everybody absolutely loves those, including myself. But part of me still misses the bearish trend already, just how easy it was to play. And that's the thing, a lot of people kept saying how manipulated the price was, and every time we crashed that it was manipulation and that sort of thing, you guys. If you just look at the market structure for what it is, we just kept setting lower lows and lower highs. And then we on the resistance retest, when people would FOMO into resistance, they'd get wrecked and blame manipulation because it couldn't possibly be them not being good traders. And so, like, that downtrend for those 3 months or so, 2 months approximately, it was very easy to trade as long as you were able to ignore the noise of the big influencers on X, even YouTube, because the biggest accounts will almost always be very bullish because that's what gets the clicks, that's what gets their funding that they don't necessarily make from trading, right? So if it's really hard, and the thing is, there's always bullish fundamentals too, even in a bear market. I mean, the fundamentals around crypto are always getting better. There's always more adoption that, you know, oh, this cycle's different because there's bigger players in the space. Yeah, well, last cycle we had bigger players get in the space. The cycle before that we had bigger players get in the space. Like that's just a reoccurring thing, and you need that to happen to have similar market cycles. So yeah, it is what it is, right? How's everyone feeling about the market? Are you guys excessively bearish? Are you excessively bullish? You missed the bear. Me too, buddy. Me too. Stu Bear is in hibernation for a little bit. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Just kidding. It's not that unfortunate. As traders, it really doesn't matter which way the market's moving. It's just, there's, like I said, there's a special feeling to trading the downside is all. And guys, most of you here are probably aware, but just like I was mentioning before the stream here, for those of you guys who do like how I look at the markets for what they are, or looking at the charts for what they are, and trading structure for what it is, I also do have my own YouTube channel where I am doing live streams pretty much every day, quick little market updates, more like 15-20 minute streams. Again, lately they've been more like 30 minutes. I'm trying to cut that down to 15-20 minutes. But that's where I'm streaming pretty much every day. Again, just quicker, much quicker streams. But you guys get the full meal deal here. You guys get to be here privately and really pick my brain. My smooth, sexy brain. Anyways, guys, I am going to wrap up the stream here. However, those of you guys who are with me here in the Discord, I will stick around. I just want to stop the recording and start things uploading and that kind of thing. But those of you guys here with me, I will be sticking around for a while. We can just shoot the shit, talk more charts, do whatever you guys want. So with that, anyways, legends, watching this on my YouTube channel a little later, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So hopefully you guys found this stream useful. If some of you guys want to also try the MDX ALGO indicators that I show on pretty much every stream, there is a link in the description down below to give those a try with a bit of a discount. For those of you who enjoy how I approach the markets, like I said, I do have this YouTube channel where I am sharing my thoughts pretty much each and every day. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.